Let's move on now and turn overseas to a big story out of the US. An American has been accused of leaking classified documents, including ones detailing the war in Ukraine. Jack Douglas Teixeira, who works for the National Guard, was arrested at his home in Massachusetts and, if convicted, could face the rest of his life behind bars.
This was the moment of arrest. On a driveway in North Dighton, Massachusetts, 21-year-old Jack Teixeira is walked backwards towards armed FBI agents, into the back of an armoured vehicle and custody. He is the young airman accused of using an internet chat room to chat national secrets, hundreds of them, over months, until his capture.
Today, the Justice Department arrested Jack Douglas Teixeira in connection with an investigation into alleged unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information.
The Ukraine conflict featured in the published material, which the leaker said he'd brought home from work at a military base. Russia featured in documents, so did North Korea, Israel, and a host of countries, friend and foe. The Washington Post interviewed a member of the chat room who knew Teixeira by his chat room name, OG.
He was a young, charismatic man who loved nature, God, who loved shooting guns and racing cars.
The documents were posted on Discord, an instant messaging platform popular with gamers. They're believed to have been posted on a server named Thug Shaker Central as early as mid-January by the leaker, who called himself OG. He shared typed-out versions and then screenshots to a group of around 20 friends. Dozens of documents relating to the Ukraine war were then posted on a different server, making them widely available. The Pentagon says it's still examining the scope, scale and impact of the leak. They can add embarrassment.
It is important to understand that we do have stringent guidelines in place for safeguarding classified and sensitive information. This was a deliberate criminal act.
At the same news conference, the Pentagon spokesman says it takes seriously the safety of its personnel and its allies. The very fact that needed restating reflects renewed questions about US intelligence, its integrity and security. It is the story of the young man dubbed OG who inflicted a security own goal. He was sharing secrets long before his government found out. The ramifications will last long after.
For more on this, joining us now is US expert Professor Simon Jackman. Simon, good to see you as always. Gosh, looking at the photos of that young man, a 21-year-old, he looks even younger in the photos we just showed. He was really playing with fire here, wasn't he? We know from history the US doesn't take kindly to classified documents being leaked out in this way.
No, and nor should they. I'm struck by the fact that the US has clearly enjoyed an incredible intelligence advantage, which has been one of the big planks in Ukraine being able to perform so well on the battlefield there. It's been obvious to anybody looking that the US has so penetrated the Russian order of battle, going all the way up into the inner circle around Putin himself, and that has been an incredible advantage. President Biden has said as much in a few news conferences, alluding to an unprecedented intelligence advantage that they have. The idea that that's been compromised at this incredibly delicate stage of the Ukraine conflict is just a hammer blow, potentially. And the idea it was done so cavalierly that, as the reporter said at the end of that report there, Ash, that it took quite a while. These documents had been in the wild for some time, and that someone so relatively junior had access to materials of that sensitivity and that breadth and was able to get them out of a secure facility and get them online. It raises an awful lot of questions, both about process inside the United States intelligence community, but also assessing the consequences in a very near-term way for battlefield effectiveness for the people that the US and the Western Alliance are trying to support on the ground in Ukraine at this moment.
And Simon, what did we actually learn from those leaks that we didn't know about prior?
I think what we learned, it revealed, I think, to the Russians just how thoroughly compromised they were. Now, perhaps they already had figured that out. And I think that might have been obvious to blind Freddie. But what's key in leaks like this is that sources and methods can be figured out by the adversary. They look at exactly who knew what when. They're trying to reconstruct a process whereby the US has come to learn or to assess X, and that allows them to backtrack and figure out where the leak might be and how to plug it and turn off the tap to the United States. It's pretty clear from the documents that have already been released. These are clearly signals intercepts. So we're talking electronic means of intelligence assessment. What will the Russians do, and others for that matter, in response to that? There's already fallout quite apart from the Ukraine matter. There's also the documents talked about would Israel be asked to supply weapons, speculation about South Korea, caused a lot of ructions there. I'm sure Biden and his national security team have just been on the phone offering reassurance to allies around the world. I'm sure Australia through the Five Eyes network. I'm sure there's been quite a few conversations, Canberra to Washington, about assessing the impact of this and any implications for some of the things we do with the Americans every day of the week. I think we still don't know, but it's that sources and methods and the idea that Russia might capitalize on this leak to plug gaps in their system that we've been exploiting quite clearly to great effect over the last year or so.
Yeah, it's a real headache. The Biden administration could have done without at this point, no doubt about that. Simon, I did want to ask you about the latest Trump circus we've seen this week. He did his first TV interview since appearing in court last week. He said that he's still planning to stand for president again, no matter what happens with those charges against him in court. Is it turning out to be a case of any publicity is good publicity for Donald Trump? How are his support levels looking?
I think we're starting to see two things about that old adage, Ash, and that is for people that love Donald Trump, this only makes them love Donald Trump even more. And the key thing about that for US politics at the moment is that we're talking about a huge chunk of Republican primary voting constituency. If anything, this is doing two things in a polarized America. It's cementing Trump's place in that segment of the electorate, and Trump remains the red-hot favorite to become the nominee of the Republican Party. On the other hand, in nationwide polls, you step away from that constituency and you zoom out to the general election constituency, this is not going over well at all. Trump's overall favorability ratings were never great in the entire US population. They've taken a further tumble. And I've heard a few commentators, Australian and American, suggest that, look, this is a dream scenario for the Democrats. Pull up the popcorn and watch the train wreck all the way into the November 2024 election, when a quite old and obviously at times enfeebled Joe Biden, gaffe-prone at the best of times and not getting any better with age, could easily be re-elected if the nominee is someone carrying as much lead in the saddlebags vis-a-vis the general electorate as Donald Trump will be, as these courtroom dramas, plural, play out between now and we're still, 18 months away.
Yeah, it's always good fun to watch from a distance. Simon Jackman, always appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Ash.